All right, welcome back, everyone. Episode 4 of MxPodtrax. Really excited today. Got another special guest. He really doesn't need any introduction, but I will do it anyway. He's a former AMA Superbike rider. He actually did race AMA Supercross as well. Tried to qualify for a couple night shows there, which we'll likely be talking about. I've known him for, I guess, pretty much every second of my life. He's probably my wiser and older half here, and it's my brother Scotty Ryan. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, buddy. Just excited to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for being able to squeeze us in. I know that your life is a little bit busy with everything that's going on in the world, and it typically has been, and it kind of shows in your beard there. What's going on? You got a couple more grays.
Yeah, the beard, the head, just in general, man. Yeah, so yeah, life is good. Life is busy, Oh yeah, the pubes, I guess.
Yeah,
but the life is good. Life is busy. Just run, and go all the time.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we appreciate you, taking the time to hang out with us here for a little bit. How's your week been? I know it's Sunday. We typically record these on a Saturday, but I know that things didn't kind of line up yesterday. But how did your weekend go?
Well, the weekend, it's for me, it all kind of blends together at time. I work a lot, so I'd say I'm pretty much on call as well. I work for a company called Olean's. I work for United States division. And so I run the motorcycle road race side of the program at Moto America. And so we deal with the race teams, and it's busy all the time. So on weekends, I'll be getting phone calls. Yep.
Yeah. When you aren't busy, that's when I think it's, time to worry. That's when you'll probably, your whole beard will be gray by then. We'll call you Santa Claus. So,
not too far out.
Yeah. So, hey, did you get a chance to watch Supercross last night? I had first thing I did when I woke up is I had to pull it up on the good old Peacock and check that out, because I'm an old man. I wasn't able to stay up late enough. I got my bedtime when my my bedtime kicks in. But what did you think? I'm interested.
Man, it was a really, I think every race weekend is going to be like this to a degree. You got to consider, in both classes there was a lot of good racing, probably for me, I'd say on the evening, the most impressive comeback ride definitely was Christian Craig.
Without a doubt.
Piled in turn one there, dead last to P3. So super good effort on his part. He is clearly head and shoulders. He's experienced, so he's got that going for him. But when you look at even the 250 class, you just look at the top 10 finishers last night, and another impressive person. And I don't know if you guys have dealt with anyone from Canada, in your conversations, but Cole Thompson, he's a privateer out of Canada, and he's in, as far as I'm aware, he's in his van. He was P9 last night. Good effort.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what do you think about 250s? Let's talk. You want to break it down like this really quick?
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I thought, my man, I'm pulling for Joe Shimoda. I really do like that kid. And, I feel like he's had a rough go so far this season, but Christian Craig, with the way that he fought through the field, I think there's going to be a lot less people talking about Shimoda, who actually worked his way up to, I believe, 5th. And he was, he endoed. He went over the bars. I don't know if you saw that. The bike slammed him pretty good in that start. And you're absolutely right. Christian Craig is leaps and bounds above anyone else in that field talent-wise. There's no doubt. Moseman looks good. I think that, what's his name? The Australian kid that wasn't supposed to be racing, his brother was. Why is it
Lawrence?
Yes. Gosh. Hunter. I think he put in a really good charge at the end there, but he's just got to kind of limit those mistakes. He's got to kind of cool down. I know that the week prior, he was a little bit too conservative. Last night, I think he was a little bit too overzealous. I think he needs to find that middle ground there, and he's going to be pretty good. But you're right, that whole field, it's pretty darn good. And I want to say they lapped all the way up to 6th place.
Something pretty far up there. Megan and I were commenting on that. That's insane. The disparity. Well, and that's also something to consider, the disparity, from the front of the field to the back of the field in the main, but even with that, the top 10 guys are all super fast. With Craig's experience level that he has going on, to speak to what you're talking about with mistakes. If you look at Craig's experience, he's been at this for quite a while, right? And because of that, he is a seasoned, I'll call him a veteran in the sport, not even in the class. So he's just been doing this a long time, long lineage. And with that being said, I mean, that allows him to ride with less pressure on himself. You listen to his interviews, and he's just, he's enjoying this. He's loving it. So the younger kids in that regard, it doesn't matter. Even look at Sexton, in the big bike class, they're going to make mistakes. It's a learning curve. It's a never-ending learning curve.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. What is Craig, 30? I think he turned 30 this year.
He's at least 30. He might be 32.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, for the 250 class, for the 250 class, it's pretty up there.
Yeah. 30 for sure. So, but he's as long as he keeps doing his thing. What did you think about some of the incidences that happened last night in the 250 class? Like, and this is not picking on anyone, because I haven't ridden in so long, like I'd never compare myself. But Freezy nailing the starts as usual.
Parking people in the corners like that's ridiculous.
For me, it's I'll be the first to admit, when I was racing, I would slam into you.
There's a difference though. Like you're talking about Justin Barsha, like putting on a block pass when he sees the opening, letting you know he's there. Yes. Okay, fine. But Freezy completely comes to a stop. What the hell is that? That is ridiculous. Like Ricky was even mad at him. Did you hear Ricky? He's like, come on.
You could hear it in his voice.
Speaking of which, I think Ricky was drunk last night.
Oh, that's possible.
I don't know. I mean, he lost some weight though. We got to give him props.
But he was in a good, last night he was in a good mood. Like I do also have to give him a lot of credit. His skill set that he has matured over the years with his commentary, he is so much better than I like
listening to him now.
Anyhow, Moseman got a win. That was great. Good for him. And Lawrence, Craig, Freezy, Shimoda, Mumford, we don't really talk about these guys all the time, but
one of the very few Suzukis in the field.
Well, one of the very few Suzukis for sure. And then, Nate Thrasher, who was much higher up at one point, right?
Yeah.
And then he fell off or made a mistake. I don't remember exactly what the scenario was. So there's a lot of these kids that still have an opportunity to be up towards, a top 5 position.
Right. So. And then how about Swole? I think Swole has a pretty good future in front of him. And if I'm not mistaken, he is, I believe he's one of the only other, is he African American?
Something like that, I do believe.
I believe so.
You're correct. I do know that it was, I want to say it was not last year's Loretta's, but the year before. He went down there and just swept up on everybody.
Yeah.
So the kid definitely has good ability. I think there's, and again, let's look back. So at some point, maybe we'll get into talking about my ridiculous escapades in racing. But with that being said, the opportunities that are available to the kids and the youth today for racing specifically. I mean, when you and I were of that category and age, Well, we didn't start really racing till we were later anyways, like 14, 15, 16. Kids now are starting at 3,
Yeah.
and they're flat out in a training facility, which kudos, but those weren't necessarily available when we were doing it. So
Right.
it's obviously you can see I get passionate about this whole sport because it's my fave. But so yeah, the kids now have a skill set that they can learn much earlier, right? So when did you ever ride a supercross layout, like a full blown supercross layout?
No, the closest thing that I really came to that was just doing back when it was the PJ1 Arena Cross series. That's
Arena cross, yeah.
yeah, and I mean,
Yep.
yeah, so I mean that was the closest thing, but if we had more exposure, and I'm not trying to say like we would have been so much better off, but we would have been so much better off. The kids would have been,
Well,
and at
or just
least
burnt out sooner.
perhaps. And I mean, just speaking for myself, I never really burnt out on the sport because I didn't take it too seriously, which I kind of have here in our notes. I want to talk about a little bit, and kind of talk about the night and day difference between how we were in our home life in terms of when
Yeah.
we were coming up racing, being siblings. But I mean, like the training now that these kids are, I don't know if you're aware, maybe you are, there's actually pretty high prevalence of PED use in supercross and motocross. Those kids are on, not all of them, but the majority of them, because I actually did speak with one of the top trainers. I'm going to leave his name out of it just for, obviously confidentiality reasons. But he used to work with a lot of the top motocross and supercross riders, names like, Dungy, so on and so forth from that era. So like kind of just the previous era. A lot of them are on a lot of performance enhancing drugs. A lot of them are on SARMs. Most of them are on steroids. And the thing that people don't realize is steroid use is not just, for bodybuilding. It's not there to just build muscle. They're called performance enhancing drugs, not muscle building. So there's a whole other category. You look at stanozolol, which is also known as Winstrol. That is a favorite among long distance and sprinters. And those are the kinds of drugs, along with GW 501516, which is cardarine, that is used predominantly in motocross for endurance and longevity and healing properties. I don't know if you noticed last week when, I forgot who's the other announcer's name. Do you know what his name is?
Oh golly, yeah, I can't recall the name,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Everyone knows. Not Ricky. So not Ricky was saying that.
Floyd.
Yeah, there we go. We'll just call him Floyd. Floyd was saying that Cian Cirillo was talking about some special supplement that he was using to heal his shoulder faster. And all of a sudden the green light went off in my head. I'm like, oh, he's using BPC 157 and TB 500, which are peptides. They're healing peptides. They could be easily had on the black market. You could get actually a prescription through a compounding pharmacy, a lot more expensive that way. But these kids, I mean, don't get it wrong. They are on performance enhancing substances in order to help them train. And they didn't have the knowledge of that when we were riding. So, I mean, I can guarantee you, Ricky, McGrath, none of them were on anything performance enhancing, but now they are. And I think that is part of the reason why there's a little bit more competition, a little bit more endurance, and a little bit more speed in the sport. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have a ton of involvement and knowledge on the supercross side in regards to the policies nowadays, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that Monster Energy Supercross is no longer affiliated with the FIM, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so example, the Moto America Superbike Series, it is affiliated with FIM, and their testing policies fall in line with what the FIM dictates is the law that they operate their rules package by. So because of that, there is testing for that sort of thing in the Moto America series. I don't know what they're doing in Monster Energy. But yeah, I mean, to kind of get away from that for a quick second though, there is a lot of opportunity, and I'll just digress. A lot of opportunity nowadays for kids to get the experience that they need to go do this. And with what they're doing with this, the new series this year for towards your points, so that they can go out and compete on that event. I mean, the one kid, and I wanted to point that out, I believe it was Ray. Okay, Ray last night, the previous race weekend, he did that race to collect his points, and he was able to compete in his first race. So, you know, he made I might be a little off on that story. He made the main last night, but he had to get there, you know, and I think maybe he was able to do the first round of the year, but he didn't qualify for the night show. And then now he makes it into the main. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive, you know, like to look at that. I mean, you know, it's a daunting task to go to a supercross, especially for your first time. And, you know, we can kind of touch on that in a minute if you want, but what do you think about 450s?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's reel it back in. It was my fault. I kind of went off on a tangent there. I mean, you're really passionate about supercross, which I am too, but I'm really passionate about pharmacology and all that, being a, you know, a physique athlete myself. But yeah, let's reel it back in and talk a little bit about the 450 class. I was pretty impressed with Sexton out front. That little bobble on the final lap kind of scared me a little bit in the whoops. But he was on rails, man. He was on rails. I saw the kid wasn't even putting his leg out in a lot of corners. He was just so in the zone. He was just like railing that track. But let's be honest here. If Anderson didn't have that mechanical, I think he would have caught him.
So I congratulated, you know, Sexton last night when I was talking with Megan. But in the same token, I totally agree with what you have there. If Anderson had one less problem during the main, I think he would have ran down Chase. Obviously, I like Chase. Chase is, you know, local kid from where we grew up, but he is young yet, and Anderson's experienced. And we're talking in Supercross. So this is a super stout field, right? This is the stoutest field.
It's the best that I've ever seen.
Oh, dude. Yeah, for sure.
Now, at first, when I saw his bike smoking, I thought the smoke was coming from underneath his helmet, you know, being part of Team Fried. And then I realized, oh, he's not, you know, getting blazed right now. His bike is malfunctioning. Did they ever say what actually happened? Was it like a radiator hose, like Ricky was saying, or?
I didn't hear what the result was from that.
Okay.
We may never
find out. I think we will.
Never hear.
I think we will. Anderson's pretty outspoken.
At the end of the day, the bike finished, and that happened fairly early in the main, if you will, considering an engine's longevity. Now, these bikes nowadays, I mean, you can run them like pretty hard to the end before they seize up. Yeah. Even without coolant for quite a while.
Right.
But the fact that he slowed down that abruptly, but then it lasted, I think he knew there was a problem and he was just trying to manage it. I don't think it got to a bad problem. He needed points and he knows that, you know. Because
imagine if it would have locked up over one of those triples.
Yeah, been there, done that. That's always a bad deal. So, yeah. So then, Anderson, I mean, for sure, that good effort too.
For sure. And then I think Eli looked a lot more relaxed this weekend on that Yamaha.
Points leader now, right?
Is he?
Yeah.
He's up. Yeah. He's up by 1 point.
Yeah.
He's up by 1 point. The whole field is so close that Malcolm is back in 7th or 8th, and it only like 4 points separate. 4 to 5 points separate first from 8th. Something silly like that. And but you know, I'm pulling for Malcolm still. I think that he's been a lot more consistent so far this season. And if he keeps that up and he starts notching a couple more podiums, he could have that red plate here soon. And I think that he's earned it. He just has to prove it.
Yeah. He's a favorite of mine. You know, I think he has it in him for sure to get wins. sometimes wrong place, wrong time, and sometimes tracks don't suit what your abilities are focused at. So, but last night he did ride well. I think that Stewart, he's a dark horse. He can go out there and sometimes be maybe not the fastest guy in time qualifying, but then in the heats, it's like he's on, or so far this year, he's just progressively gotten better. Like he has all the pieces now, and he's learning how to work within that team. And I know you and John have talked about this in past episodes, but that's a dynamic, and it's a learning curve. Once you get it to where you want it, it all gels. So
yeah, but he's another one of those riders that, I don't know, you could agree with this or disagree, but he doesn't look like he's going that fast, but he is. I don't know what it is about him. He doesn't have that riding style like his brother.
He's more fluid, where James, even though James was smooth, James was very aggressive.
Yeah, he was
extremely aggressive.
Very colorful on the bike, if you will. He used a lot of energy. He wasn't very conservative. Whereas I think Malcolm is a lot more, he's able to just kind of conserve his energy while he's riding, and it's paying off because he doesn't seem to have that late moto fatigue that he did last year or the year before. I think it's something that he's really been working on. But so with that,
it'll come.
With that being said, let's talk a little bit about you and myself growing up, riding dirt bikes. We got started on mini bike. We moved up from that to that awesome green Grasshopper 1980. Was it an 83 KX80?
83.
Wow, 83. What a piece of shit. But that was fun.
It was awesome. That thing was great.
yeah, I loved it when the throttle got stuck wide open. That was my favorite. Good times. Or the time that we tried to, what did we try to do? Solder the clutch cable back?
No. That was you guys trying to do that while I was at work or something.
That's my fault. But, you at work. You didn't work. What are you even talking about? You were 12. You were at work. You were going home, bringing home the bacon.
Maybe I was 13. Might have been 13.
Yeah, that's when you were running that company.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyhow,
no. The 83. So really quick, let's touch on that. The first time you ever rode it, what do you remember? What happened?
I rode up a tree.
Yep.
Am I right?
Straight up a tree.
So. Straight up a tree.
Yeah,
I didn't fall off though.
Did I? No, you rolled kind of. I don't know. Dude,
it was on purpose.
So long ago. The thing that stands out is you rode up a tree.
Yeah, that's all I remember. Yeah, and we knew from then on out I would be a champ. We knew it.
Oh yeah. I think it was pretty soon after that you said, "I think I want a 4-wheel."
Yeah, and then we got that Yamaha Blaster that turned out being stolen, and the cops showed up.
Yeah, that was
fun. Yeah. I loved having that thing taken away from me. I was so pissed. But
well, then you got a YZ80, correct?
94. Yeah.
Yeah.
One with the messed up clutch basket
was smoked all the time.
All the time. And Dad got mad at me because at Byron, I was in the back. You remember coming out of the back section where you do that uphill double and then it goes into the tabletop?
Yeah, and then you land left, right chicane.
Well, I didn't land because the clutch was so fried that I literally rolled backwards down it, wide open. And he's like, "Why didn't you finish the race?" And I'm like, "The clutch is fried." He's like, "Then you push the bike." I'm like, "I pushed the bike. Really?" Yeah. And then, that thing never got fixed. Every time he put a new clutch in it, it was fried.
Well, again, it was the basket, but back then, and that's the thing. That's where all my mechanical skill set started. Well, probably before the mini bike.
Thinking around after he's 7 cheeks to the wind.
No, it was out of necessity because I learned at an early age, and I remember you didn't really want to work on the bikes or do any of that stuff. So
we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So it was I knew if we were going to go racing, I had to figure out how to do all the mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
So, and it was a good learning experience.
I was helping you out for your future career. You're welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, great.
So, let's talk a little bit about that. The kind of dichotomy that the differences between you and myself. What was it like growing up in a house with someone that didn't take it seriously. My training literally consisted of probably drinking about 8 to 12 sodas a day, pops, whatever you want to call them here in the Midwest, eating Cheetos, sitting on my ass, playing video games, and sitting on the internet when that became a thing. Yes, we're that old people. It just became a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd go out on Wednesday night at Joliet, and I'd go out there and, ride, and then we'd race on the weekend. And you would take it so seriously that you wouldn't hang out with friends. You'd be studying motocross all day long. You'd be training in your room. You wouldn't drink soda. You wouldn't eat junk food. What was it like having a brother that didn't really give a crap and still went out and raced? What was that experience like?
Well, it was, for me, it was aggravating. Not that I was aggravated with you, but it was more so that, for me, we had an opportunity that, not at that time in our area, there weren't a lot of kids that had an opportunity to race like we did. And at some point, you and I, for different reasons, we ended up doing homeschool for high school, right? And for me, it was purely, I can race all the time now, so I always was focused on that. And I did curb a lot of my teenage years, if you will, and in the end, I'll be honest, I wouldn't do it differently. For me, it's made me into who I am today. I'm not going to say that my racing career specifically went, a long way, but everything I did created the opportunity for me to be, in the position I'm in the industry. So I'm really grateful for it. And it was a long building experience over a lot of years in different facets of racing. But for me, you're right, I'd train all the time. I mean, I would, our good buddies, Ratliffs, we would, even you and I, we would do motos at the house. We built a starting gate. We had a track set up. It wasn't nothing fancy. It was what we had across the railroad tracks or whatever, but we, as a group, we all had fun, right? And that's why you did it. For
sure. Yeah.
Right. I had fun. In retrospect, now I can say I had fun. Back then, and it took me a long time to realize that I didn't race because I loved motorcycles. Okay. I love motorcycles, don't get me wrong. But I like aesthetically, I like everything about it. Okay. I like the mechanical, the engineering aspect, the dynamics with geometry and such. But for me, it's I'm competitive. I raced because I wanted to absolutely destroy everyone. And once I couldn't do that anymore, it was, there's no need for me to race, and that was for a whole nother reason with injuries and such. But not that I would have made it any further than I really did. And again, that created the opportunity for Superbike. So
speaking of competition, because I think I have that same sort of competitive drive in my blood. How did you feel when I moved up to 125B? I wasn't, fast at first. And, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, but before you moved up to the A class, without my training at all, there was a time when there would be motos when I was out in front of you for quite some time until, either I fell off or you ended up getting around me. What did it feel like having your younger brother who didn't give a shit about training or doing anything go out there? And some days, especially, I remember I beat you in a moto at Byron because it was a mud race, and you were like, how the hell are you going so fast in the mud? And I think part of it was because I didn't know any better and I just didn't think. And I mean, overall, you definitely had more talent than I did on a motorcycle. You still do. And it's not because I didn't put in enough work. I think it's just naturally you're a lot more gifted on a motorcycle. And we could say the opposite for other things. I might be more gifted than you with musical instruments or with video games. Course. But as far as a motorcycle, I wasn't really naturally gifted, and it took me a while. But did it kind of piss you off if I was out there in front of you and riding well? What did that feel
Well,
like?
again, competitive, right? Especially amongst brothers. So, like, I knew and I could see, dude. Like, there was a certain point in time when you were kind of more invested, and there was that period, like, as you got onto 125s, where you had to make a decision, like, okay, either it's a bigger bike, it's going to require a little bit more, and you put that into it. And when you did that, you'd already built your basics, right, on the minis, on the 80s, or whatever you had, super cheater bike, whatever it was.
Hey,
KX
no, it was a
100.
KX80 big wheel. Yeah. Don't give me that crap.
So anyhow, you got to the point where you actually, you get a good start and you run, and you were fast. Like, I tell everyone still to this day, like, there was a certain point where, yeah, I might have, gone and done some arena cross or failed arena cross, failed supercross attempts, but like outdoors, dude, for sure. Like, I hated outdoor stuff. You went pretty good. Like, yeah, you went pretty good. Like, for me, I liked the more indoor with the timing and the rhythm and the jumps and the whoops. Granted, I was still never super great, but for me, that was more attainable. I wasn't the flat out wide open guy into the sand berms. Like, I had a tendency to knife my front end in and get tossed off in the sand. So,
fun.
But
yeah.
Anyhow,
fun.
yeah. So yeah, it was, not everyone needs the training. Like, training, I mean, especially now, training is a necessity to be at the top. But if you want to enjoy it, we'll use as an example, and we'll reminisce for a minute. Look at Lonnie Franks. Do you remember Lonnie?
Yeah.
Now, you do or no?
Yeah, didn't he pass away?
I don't believe so. Did he? I don't believe.
For some reason, I thought he did. He was number 911. He was the dude that was just out there on heroin basically half the time.
I wouldn't ever say that, but I mean,
he was
at
on
that
some
point in time, there was a lot of things going on back then. But he was
good
fast.
Guy, though.
Like, there was no training. I don't think he trained. Like,
he partied.
Just showed up and rode his bike, partied hard. Like, and he was fast. Maybe not technically. Technically, for the level we were at, he rode really well. But I didn't like riding around him all the time.
No, loose cannon.
But but so was I in certain times. So, but anyhow, so yeah, back to that. Like, dude, like, at the time, and everyone has their path and the way they want to go about what they're doing. And with racing, that's how you wanted to do it. So, in retrospect, now that we've both become, well, I'm getting real gray, but now that we're older, everyone has a choice, and if you don't have fun with it, it's not worth it,
Yeah. And to be honest, I think my whole thing to get faster was to get the girls. Not gonna lie, I thought that was the path to get the girls, and that's part of the point. Or when it came down to, I had to either party and pay for it myself, or mom and dad would continue to help with it if I stopped partying. And I realized that it's a lot easier to get the girls by being around the girls and partying than actually riding the bikes. So that's the choice that I made, unfortunately. And I ended up saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to hang it up. Because come on. I mean, think about it. 16, how old was I? 17 or 18 when I ended up stopping. 17 or 18-year-old testosterone level, you're going to tell them to choose between girls and a motorcycle? Come on now. Seriously?
Well, so that was my question. What age were you? First of all, what age were you when you last raced? Where was it and what bike was it?
I don't know my exact last race. I will say that I know that it was my 2000 KX 125. Did I ever have a 2001? Maybe it was a 2001. I think I had a 99, a 2000, then a 2001.
I think you had a 2001, yeah.
I'm pretty, because my 2000 was a POS. My 99 was good. My 2001 was good. I think it was out at Joliet. And I believe the last time I rode was the night that Tim died. Because I remember Katie.
I think you were
still
racing and I wasn't racing, correct? Because I had a street bike at that point.
No. Because you continued to race. Because you worked on qualifying for a Supercross after I was done.
So
that was Tim died in 2002.
Pontiac Supercross was 2001.
Wow. So I was still riding. We were both riding 18, at that time.
Yeah, because I forget. I broke my neck down in Florida.
Yep, Gainesville.
No. It was Hard Rock Cycle Park. We used to see. This is another difference from like the kids nowadays to then. So I would drive mom and dad's RV down, like that yellow submarine we had, the paper mache thing.
6 miles to the gallon, 2 tanks.
Drive that down.
You had to hit the switch to go to the second tank. You remember that?
Oh,
the fuel tank.
I remember it all. Yes,
it was
awesome. Phenomenal.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah,
hopefully you can hold that thought, because that reminds me, I was big into Final Fantasy VII then. I'm totally dating myself. And I was playing that all the way down to Hoopston. And this was for a Loretta Lynn's regional, if I remember correctly. Okay. It might have been the regional. And I remember I was I couldn't find a save point, and I was in the motorhome playing it. And my race, the schoolboy class, was on the gate. And I remember John Mitchell, rest in peace. He came in. He's like, Billy, you're on the gate. And I was like, hold on, I need to find a save point. That was more important to me. But I got my helmet on. I went up there. I literally got to the line right before the gate dropped, and I ended up taking second in the moto. I remember getting second, and I was battling with Sean Hamblin then. If anyone remembers Sean Hamblin.
Oh, yeah.
He and I were going back and forth. And then Shoemaker, remember him?
Yeah.
He was out front. He was gone. Way gone.
Yeah.
And I just remember I literally came back in, put my bike on the stand, went back in the motorhome to finish playing Final Fantasy VII. I didn't even care. But anyhow,
that doesn't surprise me at all.
I remember that vividly, because I remember John Mitchell coming in there and he's like, Bill, you got to go. And I'm like, hold on, I got to find a save point. He's like, anyhow.
Now this was at Joliet.
This was Hoopston.
Oh, Hoopston. Okay, no, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, and that was a fun track too. Good time.
I love that.
But anyhow, so I'll go back though really quick just to finish that up and recap on that. We went down to Florida every winter to train. And I would stay there for a couple months. And I was on their sand track down at Hard Rock, and I drug my foot pegs through all the ruts in the sand. First lap of the morning. And I was that's how I always was. I would jump everything first lap like an idiot,
You and Charlie were good at that. You and Charlie.
Oh, yeah. And so I drug my foot pegs and came up short and broke the C7 vertebrae. And, so that was what we did for training back then. So I broke that.
Wait, you broke your neck for training?
Yes. That's
how I recommend to the kids these days. Yeah. Kids, if you want to train, break your neck.
No, definitely. I do not. Highly overrated. That was like 2000. And then I forget how long of a period I took off. And then I did Daytona. I remember it was, for whatever reason, I decided it was like the end of February. And I'm like, I called Eric Ratliff and I was like, hey, buddy, you want to go to Daytona? And he's like, why? I was like, let's go race Supercross. I just got a license.
You got him, Charlie, and Brad to go with you, right? Or was it just?
I think that might have been another time.
Because I remember you all drove down there.
I think that was a different year. Because I remember being, okay, so this is, and Eric, don't get mad at me for this, but I remember being at the Daytona and I just turned 18. Gregory was like 12 or 13 at the time. And I'm like, okay, overwhelmed. I'm standing in registration line, and I'm sitting here talking, and all of a sudden, like, I see someone turn around and they're like, "Hey, nice shirt." And I look up, or I look at my shirt, and I look up, and I was wearing a TP 199
And
shirt,
it was
and it,
Pastrana.
it was it was Travis. I was like overwhelmed, like I'd never been at a national level event like that. So, but anyhow,
You've never ridden at one, because we've gone
correct.
to
I'd
plenty of
never, as a
supercrosses.
participant,
Yeah.
I'd never been in that. What was tech inspection? I had no idea. I didn't know what, like at Joliet, we didn't have tech inspection. What do you mean tech? I'm like, okay. And they're like, checking. I'm like, oh no, we're going to get in trouble for something. I was like, but I didn't know. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, think
Um,
about it. Your bike compared to those factory bikes, they're going to be like, yep, this is a piece of crap. All right, go ahead.
so that's another good story. I decided to buy a brand new, at the time, the YZ250F had just come out. So it was end of '01, I think, right? Or something like that.
Oh, those were tanks too.
And so I decided, this is my first supercross. I need the biggest advantage I can get.
I
So
remember this.
dumb,
Yeah.
dumb me. I took a brand new off the showroom floor, no suspension work, because I'd never done a
Oh my
supercross.
God.
We decided we were going to go, and we went. And I was like, I'm going racing on my own. I'm going to start doing this myself.
On a stock
And
250F.
I missed the whole first practice session because I couldn't figure out how to start it. Like, I'd never even ridden it. Like, let's just go race supercross,
That's
so
hilarious.
those were good times. But
Yeah.
so that was like '01 or '02. I think it was '01 that came out, or so I don't know. But yeah, it was supercross is daunting, and I'll never say that I qualified for a night show or a main. And just to finish with the funny story at Rattler. So we drove down there, the three of us. We got a radar detector for my Toyota Tacoma. We were wide open to get there in time. And Eric and Gregory got kicked out by the Speedway officials because they got into.
They got kicked out.
There was an altercation.
Eric, Greg, I know you're watching this. I don't know how you did it, but you got kicked out of everywhere. I remember every single hotel that we went to when we were racing. Your mom would come in, Kim Ratliff would come in and be like, "We gotta go. We're kicked out." What? What happened?
Speaking of hotels, what about the hotel that was it called the Budget House down at Casey?
Knights Inn.
Was it the Knights Inn? I don't remember what it was.
There were two.
That was awesome. Good time.
We got kicked out of there, and then we went to Long John Silver's with Roy Horton and his family.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Time. So yeah, I mean, here's my thing. Like, I didn't have, like, I never made a main or a night show. They got kicked out, so I ultimately had to leave. I didn't get to do anything that day. Like, I did, I think 2 practices. We had 3. I did 2 practices. But the one thing I remember from Supercross, especially because Daytona's like an outdoor, but at the time there were some serious big jumps for 125. So let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
And the whoops back then were super deep. So when I went,
sandy too.
So I went to the Pontiac Supercross, I think that year, to try to race. And again, this was just after my broken neck. So I really didn't know if I could do anything. But I remember walking the track in practice. And I decided I was going to ride my 125 because I was done with that stupid 4-stroke. Like, I hated I still don't. I'll never own. Don't want it. Z50. But the whoops were like chest deep. Like, when you were standing down at the bottom of the whoop, it was like chest deep. And I was like, how am I jumped through them the best I could. I remember almost going over the bars. I'm like, you can't even do that. You have to blitz these things
because they're so close together from the trough to the peak. It's interesting. They're pretty far apart, but they are steep. That's the thing. Like you said, you aren't going to be able to jump through them. Or if you are, you have to be so on with your timing, because if you overjump one just a little bit, you're going to actually, your front tire is going to be hitting the takeoff of the next one. You're going to go over the bars. You're done.
Well, and the tracks are built much differently nowadays. I don't know if it's out of necessity or whatever the case is, but the equipment is allowed. The bikes, the engine package and everything is allowed. The track designers to do some things.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, like in the background, I've got a hat that says y'all motherfuckers need two strokes. I'm still a two-stroke guy. So like last night watching anything that was 250, even Megan was like, she's like, oh, can you hear Steinke? I'm like, yep, I can hear it, you know? So he was out on 125 again.
125.
So for me, that's
so
awesome.
Crisp. Yeah.
I mean, it's, but yeah, so racing, what are we missing, dude, that you got on your list here? Because I could go on for days.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, we're going to have transition in some listener questions here. Are you excited for those?
Oh, dude, I'm excited for our, yeah,
we got
let's
about 15 minutes here, so we're going to get into these, make sure that we have time to wrap up. So, all right, here we go. First one is a good one right off the bat. Love this one. So it says, if you had to choose between racing without pants on or without goggles, what would you choose and why?
That's a good question. So I have raced many a times without goggles on.
How many times have you raced without pants on? Okay.
See, and that's the thing. Never in my life have I done that. There's everyone's seen that photo shoot with Pastrana riding around naked or whatever. Like, I'll leave that to him. If it's me, I'm choosing to ride without the goggles. I'll do hot laps around our cottage in Michigan naked if we're drinking and there's a good fire. But on the moto track, I'll go without goggles. I'll squint.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I'm one of those dudes that Chelsea laughs at me. I don't even like to sleep without pants on because I'm scared that I'm going to get bit in the wang by a bug. I don't know. It's just something about that. Like, I think one of the worst fears I have in my life is getting stung in the nuts by a bee.
Oh,
have you ever had like a wasp or a yellow jacket go up your pant leg a little bit?
Yeah, I think I have. I've never been stung like anywhere, you know, that like that. I mean, I've been stung in the ear. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
you know,
but one can
it's not your
imagine
satchel.
Getting stung in the taint by a wasp has to be one of the most painful experiences ever. I'm taking sand in my eyes all day. All day.
Dude.
All right. Well, that one's good. So here's a pretty straight up question. Your favorite track to ride?
Are you talking like any track, or are we talking moto specific?
Any track you've ridden on a dirt bike.
Okay. On a dirt bike. Okay. So for me, I was always a big fan of, if we're talking like an outdoor style track,
I know what you're saying.
Lincoln Trail.
Yeah.
Lincoln Trail.
Casey.
Casey for me, and I know a handful of people that are going to agree with this, Eric Ratliff being one of them, that when the track was prepped properly, it was perfect. Like, and I know you remember this, like it would be just tacky enough, but not too soft and not too muddy. The soil composition was good. The track flowed well. They had some really cool sections with some jumps, and it was historic as well. It's not as old as Byron on the history side, but the other one would be Redbud. Now, Redbud, phenomenal track, right? But also daunting, massive in scale.
I love that place.
Oh, dude, I've had some good races there and some bad ones. But yeah,
I remember you battling with Nick Way there.
There was that. If we go back, that would have been a 4-stroke national. Okay, this is when we had 4-stroke nationals, and
this was after he actually retired from the AMA series, right? The regular.
No, I think this was before, dude. Like I mean, really? Like this was. So when you say before or after, so we're talking like 1999 or 2000. This would have been. I think I went to A class in '99.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because we would have been freshmen in high school when you went A.
Yeah, I think I went A in '99, maybe.
No, it can't be. It had to have been 2000, because I was in B class when you were for about half the season before you went up.
Okay. See, now this is a long time ago. I
I
mean, if
know.
you
I'm
really
trying to
think,
remember. I'm like,
you know,
what? How old was I, Sonny? You know?
yeah, I don't know. So, but yeah, you're right. It was Nick Way. It was four stroke nationals. I remember guys on the gate, just a few guys that were on the gate. And I was like, oh my gosh. I want to say it was 250 because in the four stroke nationals, they ran a 125 and a 250 pro class as well. And they paid as a pro am class. So at the time, it was like, I forget what the purse was. It had to be like $3,500 per class for
Yeah.
a total of almost whatever 10 or it was something like that. But so anyhow, long story short, I remember looking down. It was like Nick Way. It was at the time. Who else was there? It was Kelly Smith because I
Oh yeah.
remember him being there as well. Mark Burkhart. You remember some of these other guys?
I don't remember
From
Burkhart.
You don't remember Burkhart?
No.
Wow, you're young. So you,
What?
I mean, you've also got guys that were there that they went on to do some pretty cool things. I mean,
Mickey
so
Diamond.
that was no, not Mickey Diamond.
Roger DeCoster.
But so I looked down the gate and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. It was kind of muddy, like it was early morning, and I pulled the whole shot and I led. I think till we got to they had the pipe doubles. Do you remember the double
Oh yeah.
section that was
Yep.
the pipe doubles before you had that uphill tabletop thing? And I remember coming through the right hander and like did a 360 off the face of the jump. And I just remember splatting into the mud and everyone else jumping over me. And I was like, this is the snottiest, muddiest thing. I can't even get out. So good times.
So Redbud and Casey.
And Lincoln Trail for sure. Those are my tops.
Okay. Mine, you might be surprised. What do you think? Okay, it's kind of a tie, and one of them is going to be very controversial. People are going to hate me for this, but what do you think is one of my favorites?
I think that and this is, you're going to love this. The trail system that Charlie had in Lockport.
That's it. How'd you know?
Yeah.
The one where it's like you literally had to like squeeze.
The one where he split his like body open hitting that tree that one time.
That was so much fun. Yeah. No, you're close though. So tying at the front, Sunset Ridge, Walnut. One of my favorite tracks to ride. Absolutely loved it. I went fast there.
Middle of nowhere.
Again, it's like a wide open track. That was something that I was good at. Now, this one is simply due to nostalgia, and it's Joliet. It's Joliet just because of all the nights that we had there.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we were friends with Keith and Keith owned it, we'd be able to go out there during the week for that short period of time when we were homeschooled, and it was my escape. It was my escape from being at home. And I really loved going out there. So those are my two. Tie in there kind of for first. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, Joliet, shut up. Okay. Just, you know what? I'm going to do me.
Hey, I mean, it was close. It was local. We could hit it twice a week, usually. If not, I mean, sometimes, like you said, when Keith would let us come out, you know, we'd be out there 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree with you in that regard. Now the drive from the suburbs of Chicago there, for those that aren't local to that area,
30 minutes
down to
for
Joliet, us. Depending upon the time though, especially when they do all that construction on 355.
Wednesday night,
if it's rush hour. Wednesday
was bad.
Night, like we would have to leave at like 1:30, 2 in the afternoon to get down there.
Yeah,
for
it took
a 5
a couple
o'clock
hours.
Start.
Yeah.
And it was like 30 miles. Oh,
but now luckily, I don't know. I think I told you this. Rocky Glen is 8 miles from here, from where I live now.
Yep. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. You and Chelsea will enjoy that.
I'm excited. I would, you know, Eric actually invited me to MxPodtrax the other day, but I haven't really shared this with anyone. I tore my biceps, so it's not bad.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know. It's a little black and blue, so I tore it. Yeah. But anyhow, it'll heal pretty quickly. I'm going to ask Adam Cianciarillo for some of his healing peptides. We'll be all right. Now, last question here, and I think I already know the answer because you kind of expounded on this earlier. Worst bike you ever owned?
Oh, God.
Dirt bike.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the one that I made to look like the Hurricane Yellow bike?
The yellow
Yeah.
banana peel.
Okay. So we're talking about the same bike. Now, I love that color scheme on the Yamaha. I like the history. Again, I'm kind of funny like this, but I like the history of sport.
Yeah.
So, you know, that retro look for me was cool, and I was going for different. But that would have been cool if it wasn't for the fact that every time I would come up to the face of a jump, I
It would
want to
cut
say
out.
this was that a 99 or a 2000?
It was a 99 YZ125.
Yeah, 99. And it was brand new, like brand
It was
new.
a lemon.
It had to. Well, all right, here. So here's what ultimately what happened then was this. I'd approach a face of a jump. And as soon as the bike would take the hit, like to compress into the face of the jump, it would bog. Like, and I'm like, the first time it happened, I had no idea what was going on. And I remember going clean over the front of the handlebars on that thing. It
that
was
front
that right
triple at Joliet.
Down the front. Yeah, yeah. So you do the start straight, right? And then
Yep.
you go through whatever and you make that right hander. And it was like a small little double. Then there was a decent sized triple. And then the finish line jumped by the spectator stand.
A decent sized triple. That thing was pretty big. That was third gear tapped on a 125 compressing.
Yeah.
I remember.
Probably, but you want to talk about big jumps? We can do this in a different episode someday.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to some of this stuff. Especially Salem.
Yeah.
That triple, that downhill triple that you had to turn off of at Salem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. For the regional, where we're there for regional.
That was fourth gear, wide open.
Wide open on 125.
Wide open.
Flat out, full, trying to compress and stretch it out, and then land into a berm. You know. Right?
That was fun. No, you're talking about the uphill finish line. I'm talking about the one coming from the back of the track. You hit a tabletop.
Yeah, wasn't it a right-hander?
Yep. You come out of a left-hander, you hit a tabletop that goes into a right-hander, and as you're turning, you're starting to hit the face of that triple.
Yep.
And then you have to literally, well, not really scrub it. You have to whip it in order to not
turn
land off
bike.
the track.
Yeah, so you can land.
I never jumped that thing.
Right.
Because I just didn't have the balls.
So down in Florida had some good sized jumps too and you should have experienced that, dude. There was the one jump, and now I was on 125, but they called it the elevator.
I remember that.
This was at Gainesville.
Yeah, because I remember Stuart was doing it on his 80.
So it was a lessee. And those two, I remember, those two kids just flat out wide open, like trying to run off outside the track, and they were hitting this thing. I'm like, oh my, like, but there were some big jumps, so anyhow, what was the worst bike? That 99, because we couldn't figure it out. And like, I remember waking up in the hospital, choking on my tongue or whatever. And it's just like, I think we got rid of it.
Not without taking some time. I don't know why you didn't get rid of that sooner, but
well, we didn't have a ton of money at the time. But with that being said, I think that there was a short in the bike. I don't.
It was
think
electrical.
It was carburation.
It was electrical.
It wasn't combustion. It was electrical, and we just couldn't get it sorted. So if I changed the wiring harness on it, maybe. But again, at that time, I was learning mechanics. I wasn't. So anyhow, that's it. 99. Mom called it Christine.
I remember that.
It had a mind of its own.
It did.
For those of you young folks, Christine was I believe was that a Stephen King movie?
I don't know. I know it was probably something like that.
A car that had a mind of its own.
Oh, okay. I never put the two together, but now I learned something new today. Very cool. Yeah. But anyhow, we are coming up to the bottom of the hour. So first off, thank you, Scotty. This was awesome.
Not a problem, buddy.
Appreciate you coming on. We'll get you on. We'll get you on again, because I know John was supposed to be on here. I think the three of us would make for an entertaining podcast episode. But
I do agree.
Now, to everyone else, if you have any questions that you want answered, feel free to DM me on Facebook. You can comment below here on YouTube. You can make them as funny, as raunchy as possible. We don't get offended easily, so make sure that you ask whatever you want. But we'll get Scotty on again. We appreciate it. And subscribe. Tune in, folks. But Thanks again, Scott.
All right, man. Good job.
Yep. Later, man.
Bye now.